All right, folks, you've heard a lot from him in recent days, some online, some on our air. We actually want to hear from him exactly now. This is the vice chair of the DNC. We're going to get into that situation. And also, he's a PA rep who we've had on the show many times. Good to see Malcolm Kenyatta right from the car because he's busy and he's in D.C. right now. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and I'm driving from here to be with a local Democratic Party who's raising funds to get people registered to vote, get people out to the poll, and do all the important work that we need to do.
Well, let's start with what caught our attention this week. You were having some profanity as part of your response in certain things. Seems like you're getting very passionate about what you feel in these different scenarios. To me, who's interviewed this before, I haven't seen this side of you. Are you feeling differently about stuff? You need to get people's attention. Why use the F word a few times?
Listen, the most important F word is what I'm going to repeat here today, and it's funding. We need to fund public transit, and we're in a position right now where I think people really need to understand the impact of our dereliction of duty, if it were to happen, to not fund mass transit across Pennsylvania. When people think about mass transit, too often I think their mind goes to a crowded train in an urban center. But we also need to think about the paratransit, folks who get people who are homebound or who are seniors to their doctor's appointments, to their other appointments, to visit family and friends. Right now, mass transit in Pennsylvania is facing a crisis like one we've never faced before, and we have the ability to respond. And unfortunately, leaders in the Senate have done what they've done too often, to try to pit parts of Pennsylvania against each other, to say that if we do funding for mass transit, then there's something else that we need to do somewhere else. That's not the appropriate way to look at this. Mass transit is for all Pennsylvanians. And I just mentioned that this is a rural, suburban, exurban, and a urban issue. And it ought to be treated like that. And we can do the work that we need to do to fund our roads and bridges. We can do the work that we need to do if we do it together.
You know how the game's played. Sometimes it's been on the other side, and the vote won't come up, even though it seems to be an easy one. And this back and forth has happened in Harrisburg ever since. We've had one side in control, and the other side won't even look at stuff. So I know that. But honestly, using the F word, was it to get more attention on this topic?
Listen, I'm going to keep talking about what I think is important. And what's important is we are in a position right now where people's jobs, their ability to get to doctor's appointments, and everything else is at great risk if we don't do funding. And I hear your point about bills that don't move in the House or don't move in the Senate, but I do sort of reject the premise that this is common. I do want to reject the premise that it's just politicians playing games and this always happens. This doesn't always happen. We are facing a crisis like we've never faced before, and we need people to get serious about it and not play the traditional political games with something that is existential. And when something's existential, you use whatever you can to highlight. And let's be very clear, as I said, the most important F word that I'm going to continue to use is funding, and we need to fund mass transit, and I hope that we do.
The other topic that you used some colorful language on was the DNC situation. I think the bottom line from the Democratic point of view, I talked to a lot of Democrats when I'm out and about, usually after a pickleball game, is when they're saying, we're so frustrated right now. We have so much to talk about. And yet within the DNC, within Democrats, between Democrats, there seems to be this infighting right now. And to me, it felt like some of that frustration was coming out in terms of specifically what's happening in the DNC. For your Pennsylvania audience who's specifically watching right now, what should they know about what's happening in that scenario? And they're maybe hearing for the first time that they were proud that you were a vice chair, and now that is going to be challenged and potentially revoted.
Well, my first national conversation about this was with your network nationally, and I will just try to be as brief as I can. We had an election. You needed 201 votes. I got 298 votes, an overwhelming victory. One of the challengers who was not successful in the race effectively argued that there was a violation of Robert's Rules of Order. And for people whose eyes have already glazed over, that's a boring, complex system that we use to
We remember
govern
those from SGA
how
in high
meetings
school.
should
We
be.
talked about, the Robert Rules of Order. I remember that from high school.
There you go.
Yeah.
So somebody put in a claim that Robert's Rules of Order were violated. The Credentials Committee agreed with her and said that there should be a new election with the 5 candidates, myself included, to remedy that procedural flaw. I disagree with that, but I respect the committee's right to make that determination. And now I think we ought to get about the business of moving forward. The issue that some people have heard about relates to one of the other vice chairs who has erroneously and incorrectly gone out and said that this challenge, which was brought back in February, is a way to sort of like push him or push me, out of the party. In the Democratic Party, we believe in due process. This individual had a right to challenge the procedural mechanisms of the vote. She did so. That challenge was upheld. Now I think we need to move forward and talk about the fact that right now in DC, Republicans are going to gut Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and food stamps. And the governor in a press conference just yesterday made it clear that if the Republican plan cuts move forward, cuts that are being supported by every Republican member of Congress in Pennsylvania right now, we will see the mass closure of hospitals in rural areas. We will see people die because of these cuts. And I wish I was being hyperbolic, but I'm not.
What can we look forward to in terms of cleaning up this vote scenario, though? How fast is this going to happen so we know that you're going to continue as a vice chair, and then, like you said, as a party, they can move on?
Yeah, so the good news is I've asked for this process to be expedited, and I have every confidence that, the work that I've done will speak for itself, and DNC members will make a vote about whether or not to, continue to move forward. And I think we do need to move forward. I know that so often, and particularly because I'm a politician and we're talking about a political role, it's easy for people who are independents or Republicans to just sort of roll their eyes at this. But please hear me, whether it's the crisis of mass transit or whether it is the wholesale cutting of Medicare and Medicaid, which not Malcolm, the independent Congressional Budget Office has said would result in 14 million Americans losing their health care, including hundreds of thousands of Pennsylvanians. That is what should be the main focus. But when a circus is in town, at a certain point, you do have to address it. It's unfortunate that I have to address it, but we did address it. I hope people understand it. Now I'm ready to talk about how we can continue to advance a serious agenda to make life better for people.
My last question on the DNC piece of this, as you're turning around a little bit. There you go. It's
there we go. See, we're turning around all of this nonsense to get refocused. Okay?
We're gonna refocus. You're in focus. I see you now. Can you guys focus together? I mean, I know one of the criticisms against David Hogg, who was the other vice chair that you were referencing. He was willing to use DNC money to challenge incumbents. I know that some of the party was against that. Is that now dead? Is that over? Or is that something that could continue as well? Because that is definitely part of the conversation right now.
Unfortunately, it continues, and it continues in a way that's not clear for folks. So let me, in 10 seconds, clarify it. The DNC is not an incumbent protection racket. Okay, I am not here as vice chair endorsing every incumbent or endorsing challengers. This is very simple. David and I have a difference of opinion. He believes that party bosses, of which he is a party boss, should be deciding the outcomes of our primaries. I believe that voters should decide the outcome of our primaries, and then the DNC should support our Democratic nominees. That's the difference of opinion that we're having right now.
Understood. All right, you're a busy guy. I'm going to let you get on the road again. That's good. And when you're driving, make sure that it's this way and not that way, so you can see the road the right way as well.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Joe.
All right, good to see you. Malcolm Kenyatta, everybody. Thank you.